Welcome to Fame Live Cafe, Paying Back College While Adulting. This is part one of a three-part series. My name is Martha Johnston. I'm the Director of Education at the Finance Authority of Maine. And tonight we have Hannah Richards here. I'll have Hannah introduce herself and then we'll talk a little bit about what it is we're going to cover tonight.
Great. Well, I am a marketing strategist by trade, a mom 100% of the time, and a person that has a significant amount of student loan debt. So I'm dealing with all the same problems that if you're watching, you're probably dealing with. So I'll ask a bunch of questions that maybe you don't want to ask or know the answers to, but we're going to ask them anyway.
Great. So the goal tonight is to talk about refinancing your student loans or consolidating your student loans and trying to just learn a little bit about that to see if it's the right thing for you. So, oops. Look at that. So you know who we are, what we're doing. So paying back college debt while adulting, determining if refinancing is for you. And we'll go ahead and we'll answer Hannah's questions.
So first thing that I have to figure out, you hear a lot about refinance and consolidation. Are they the same thing? Are they different things? How does that work?
Perfect, great question. That's the one we need to start with. So in the student loan world, consolidation means a very specific thing when you use the word federal in front of it. So federal consolidation basically is a student loan program available through the government, and it allows you to only combine your federal student loans. So you have one brand new federal student loan, you've consolidated them, and what you've done is the government has given you a new interest rate, but that interest rate is calculated based on the average of all the interest rates of the loans you brought into the consolidation.
Okay, so that I think I've done, because I had a bunch of federal student loans, and then right after I graduated, which was too long ago for me to really remember what I did, now I only have one, so yeah. I must have consolidated them.
It sounds like you did federal consolidation, which is perfect.
Okay.
So that's great. So refinance and how that's different. Refinance or refinancing student loans basically means you take student loans, whether they're federal or private, so they could be both, and you get a brand new loan with a brand new interest rate, and it pays off all those old loans. So refinancing is very different than consolidation. Although when someone refinances, it also coincidentally can allow them to combine loans. So sometimes it feels like consolidation, but the fact that you get that brand new interest rate, and that interest rate is based on the quality of your credit because you're applying for a loan just like you would a mortgage or a car loan.
So a refinance is anytime you have a brand new loan, that would be a refinance.
Pretty much. And a federal consolidation is just a very specific program for federal student loans.
Okay, so how do I know if I should be refinancing or consolidating?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great question. I mean, generally speaking, we always tell people to be very aware of your federal student loans and the fact that they carry a lot of good benefits, right? So they carry longer deferments, they carry some economic hardship deferments, so things that you might just consider beneficial if you need them in the future.
Okay.
If you were to refinance those federal loans into a private refinance loan, you wouldn't have those benefits anymore. So that's not to say that that's a bad thing, as long as you know going into it that you think to yourself, yeah, I don't really need that kind of support anymore on federal loans, and really my goal is to have one loan, one payment, and I just want them all in one place. So it really depends on what your goal is.
Okay, so that's my goals. I just want them to be done with. That's my ultimate goal.
Yes.
So if I felt confident that I wasn't going to take an economic hardship or something like that, then it would be okay to refinance federal loans into a private loan.
Exactly. So whether it's an economic hardship deferment or public service loan forgiveness, so those are some of the things that go along with having a federal loan. If you know at this point in your financial life, you know what, I'm not going to access any of those programs, and my goal is simplicity, because you have two children and a busy life, or my goal is to extend how much time I'm repaying because I want to have a lower monthly payment.
Okay.
You know, that could be a goal somebody has because maybe they want to free up some income to do some other things. But the other thing I would say, and maybe this isn't for your situation, but what I would say is sometimes it's both, right? So for some people, federal consolidation is a really good thing to do with their federal loans, like you did when you first graduated. Yep. And then if they have private student loans, they say, you know what, I'm going to refinance my private loans, but just keep them all together. And so then I'll have two payments. I'll have one private, one federal.
That's where I'm at now.
Okay. And so for you, at this point in your life, you might say, I can combine them now because I know where I'm at, what my goals are, and I don't think I need to take advantage of these federal benefits.
Okay. Makes sense. So let's get down to the real question that everyone has, which is how do I know if I refinance or I consolidate? How do I know ahead of time what my payment's going to be?
Yeah, that is that's like the $50 million question.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. There are actually a lot of calculators, and so you can actually go out to the loanforme.com, which is Fame's website that acts as a student loan resource. And there's really a great calculator that allows you to say what your current loan is, its interest rate, how many months are left, and then what the new loan might be. So you kind of have to guess about the interest rate because you don't know yet what a lender will give you for an interest rate.
Okay.
But say you feel really confident that you have the highest quality credit, you could estimate and say, okay, I think I'm going to get X percent. And then you'd be able to say, okay, if my interest rate was 1% lower or 2% lower, then my monthly payment would be X, and that feels good, or that feels bad. I'm not going to do it.
It all feels bad, basically.
But the idea is that when someone thinks about it, everyone can have a different goal, right? Sometimes it's a lower monthly payment. Sometimes it's I want to pay the least amount of interest back over the life of the loan, so I want the shortest term.
Right.
And sometimes it's just that simplification. It's a headache. I've got too many payments. I want them combined, and for me, I'll pay a little extra because the simplicity is worth it.
Right. So to use that calculator, there's certain things I need to know, like how much do I owe, what's my current interest rate, or what the future interest rate might be. Is there like a list or something that I can access so I know all the information I need up front before I go use it?
Yeah, so actually at our website at theloanforme.com, we also have a list that helps you kind of just organize. Now I realize list sounds like paper and paper sounds like old school, but I highly recommend just biting the bullet, printing off the list, and getting yourself organized. In your case, you said you think you're down to just 2 loans, so that's not so bad.
I hope so.
For someone who's just graduated and they might have multiple loans, the list is really helpful because you say, okay, I've got this loan, this interest rate, and another really important thing about the list is to figure out whether or not your private loans or even some of your old federal loans have what we call borrower benefits. So is there kind of like a perk, a feature attached to your loan that you don't want to lose in a consolidation or in a refinance? So that just kind of helps you become very informed and very aware before you take your next step.
Even with just 2 loans, I totally need to do that because I had to literally search through my emails. My loans are on auto pay, and I don't even know who my lenders are.
Yeah.
So
the list does that too.
Step 1, figure out who your lenders are.
Yeah. What's the loan? Who's the lender? Who do I send the payment to? And how much am I sending them every month?
Yeah. I have no idea.
So it's really helpful. And actually, I would say even if someone doesn't refinance or consolidate, it's kind of good to get back in touch with your loans every once in a while, so you just want to make sure you got a handle. It's like checking in. So
great. So if you guys have questions while we're talking, feel free to type them in and we'll try to answer them as we go. Okay, so we talked a little bit about there's federal loans, private loans, then there's grants, which are different. So we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but can I put all those things together? Do they have to stay separate?
Yeah. So in our part 2 series, we'll talk a lot more in detail about how to choose a lender and how to find the right program. But to kind of give you a little bit of a teaser for next week, yes, so it depends on the lender, right? So if you find a refinance student loan program that doesn't allow you to bring in federal loans, in your case, you think, that might not be the right program for me. So it really is about how you research what products are out there, make sure that they're for the purpose of refinancing student loans, and then you can find one that will allow you to combine both federal and private. And like I said, because you're pretty aware and you know where you're at in your financial life, combining them might not be a bad decision for you, whereas with other people we might say, oh, you want to make sure before you combine federal and private.
Okay. And so we just got a question in, someone wondering, how can I figure out where all your loans are?
Oh, that's a
really good question. For me, I had to look through my email and see who my statements were coming from. But if you don't have those and maybe you're worried that there's a loan out there that you don't even know about, where can you find out?
Yeah, so you do one of two. You want to absolutely do 2 things. One thing that you want to do is nslds.gov. So that stands for National Student Loan Data System. And that's a system that you can sign on to so you can figure out what you've got for federal student loans. And then as far as your private student loans, yes, searching through your email might be a good tool. But what you could do is actually pull a copy of your credit report. So what I would recommend, just to make sure you don't forget anything, I would recommend especially do annualcreditreport.com. So it's a free opportunity to pull your credit report each year. It doesn't impact your credit.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question, and that's a great question to ask. But if you pull a copy of your credit report, you will be able to see both your federal and your private. But I also recommend going to NSLDS just as a backup on your federal. So you have a really good
and we'll link both those things in the comments.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
So another question around that. When I went to college, obviously there was opportunities to get scholarships and grants, and I was 18, so I was really lazy and didn't feel like doing as much as I should probably. But now I'm thinking, man, if someone was going to give me $5,000 towards my loans, I would back Mount Everest.
Right.
Are there still opportunities even after you're in repayment to get grants?
Yeah, that's actually a really great program. We don't call them grants, but well, some places call them scholarships, to tell you the truth. But really, they're commonly referred to as loan repayment programs, or sometimes they're called forgiveness programs. So there, I know, right? There are two really great programs that stand out in Maine. So I'll just mention those as examples. But whoever you are watching this, you might want to check where you are in your state. So maybe you have a state agency like the Finance Authority of Maine. But we have a program called Opportunity Maine, and it's also called the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, so it's kind of a long name, but Opportunity Maine is much more fun to say. But basically, that's a tax credit for your state taxes that reimburses you for payments on your student loans. So people kind of have to think out of the box. Are there maybe some tax credits or tax advantages I can get because I'm paying my student loans? And then another program that we just started administering here in Maine is called the Alpha Leaders Program. That's just an example of a really great program where a philanthropy said, hey, we want to do something for the economy in Maine, and we really want to encourage people to live and work in Maine and to work in the STEM field. So if you live and work in Maine for up to 10 years, they'll pay back up to $60,000 on your student loans. Now, they'll pay half. So it's either half or $60,000, whichever is less. So if you had $30,000 in student loans, they'll pay $15,000. If you had $120,000, they'll pay a maximum of $60,000.
I'll take it.
But that's a great, that's a great thing. And I would say to anybody watching this who's in health professions, that's actually pretty common too. If you have a health professional kind of shortage area, hospitals, the employer themselves might actually use loan repayment as a recruitment tool. So if you're doing some job hunting, why not ask if that's one of the benefits?
So that grant could be you already went to college and you already work in the healthcare or other STEM field, and you can just apply and get some of your loans forgiven.
Sure, yeah. The Alpha Leaders Program, for sure, that's how that works. As far as recruitment, like a lender using it as a way to attract people to their place of business, when you're on your job hunt, why not ask? And if enough people ask, maybe some employers will start incorporating that into their benefits.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah, please. It's a good thing.
All right. So let's talk about some of the other questions around eligibility, because I know a lot of people, especially when you're young and you have kids, and my daycare payment is basically the same as my mortgage payment. So I don't, my net worth is like negative something, I don't know. How do I know if I'm even going to be eligible if someone's going to give me a loan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so a lot of people are worried about going through the process of applying. But most lenders do have what we would call a pre-approval process. So it's a really quick, short application to see, first of all, if you credit qualify on the surface. And when I say on the surface, I mean you have a decent credit score, or you have a credit score that meets their criteria. They take a look at your income, and they do something called a debt-to-income ratio. So
that
basically,
sounds scary.
I know it is. It's actually terribly dry, right? But they basically take a look at your monthly income, and they look at all your monthly payments as a percentage of that income. And they want to make sure that your payments are below a certain percent so that you still have room to qualify for that loan.
So what would be included in those payments? Like, are they counting my cable bill, or are they just counting like medical payments?
That's great. That's a perfect question. So if you want to see what they're counting, pull your credit report.
Oh boy.
So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to count what we call installment debt. So installment debt, in your case, mortgage payment.
Yep.
Your student loan payments, of course, those are going to be refinanced, so they might calculate your future student loan payment, credit card payments, car payments, but not childcare, not utilities, because, for instance, a debt-to-income ratio for a lender might be, as long as your debt to income ratio is 40% or lower, or 45% or lower, you could qualify for our loan. The rest of that other 55%, that's where you've got utilities and child care and miscellaneous.
Okay.
So it's kind of like they're allowing for it by setting that limit.
Okay.
The other thing too that I would say is some lenders might count a payment on any open credit cards that you still have, even if they don't have a balance, because they might count it as, but you could put a balance
on it.
So they might calculate a minimum monthly payment just to make sure it doesn't tip you over the edge.
Okay, so that would be based on your credit limit on that credit card.
Yeah, it would be. So if you have a lot of open cards that you're not using, you just might want to ask yourself, do I need to have them open? Is it time to maybe close one or two gradually? Because you don't want to do anything that kind of jolts your credit score.
Right.
So you want to do things methodically and gradually. But to answer your question very directly, daycare payments are not counted. But it is important for anyone watching this who has rent. We would put a rent payment, because that's really someone's biggest monthly payment, either a mortgage or a rent. So we certainly,
until they have kids, and then that's your biggest monthly payment.
Then it's your daycare payment. Been there, done that. Now I pay college tuition.
Yeah, then that's your biggest payment.
I'd like to pay
they never
daycare.
get any cheaper. So is there like a calculator or anything that you can use, or is just a simple equation to calculate your debt to income ratio if someone wants to do it themselves?
Yeah, it really is a simple equation. So all you're doing is taking your gross monthly income. Well, actually what you're taking is the combination of all your monthly payments on that installment debt.
Just you, or if you're married, does that include your spouse?
Oh, that's a really great question. So here's how spousal debt to income ratio works. I've got to put my glasses up for this one. Make sure I explain it correctly. So if you were to apply for a refinance loan on your own, and you listed only your income, but on your credit report a lot of debt showed up that was jointly held, then it would still look like it was only your debt. So it would make your debt to income ratio
really
look high. So in that case, you might want to add your spouse as a co-borrower. Or sometimes you can still be the only borrower, but you can list something called household income.
Okay.
So sometimes a lender will ask for household income. And if you can list household income, then you list your spouse's income, because obviously you're not carrying that mortgage on your own.
Right.
You know, that's just an example. So that's kind of how
So
the
debt
spouse
to income
would...
ratio is not a reason to get divorced.
No. No.
Got it. All right. And one of the other things I wanted to ask too is we were talking about credit score a little while ago.
Yeah.
Is there a standard or sort of a minimum that you really need to meet to be eligible for most refinance loans?
Yeah, you know, that's actually a really great question. Lenders don't reveal their credit scores because that's considered like proprietary information. So a lender will never put on their website, if you have a credit score over X, right?
Yeah.
But I think just because of my own background in lending for a lot of years, what I would say is that probably the lowest you would ever want to be would be the high 600s.
Okay.
But I would put that more in the fair range, and really I think if someone's building their credit, they really want to strive to be up over 700.
Okay.
So I would put the low 700s in good.
As like a goal.
Yeah, and then if you're anything, I would say above 730, that's great. That's great. And high is like, 800. So that's great. That's really great.
Those are for like the real adults.
I once actually had a friend who said to me, my credit score is 800. Is that any good? I said,
like, want to trade?
Yeah, that's a really good credit score. So she just wasn't, that wasn't her thing. And I said, yeah, no, you're in good shape.
And if you're not there yet, if you're still building your credit, are there things you can do? Like, can you get a cosigner? Would that help? Or do you really just need to work on bringing your credit score up?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. So it depends, right? If you kind of have one of those borderline credit scores and the lender lets you bring on a cosigner, that might be enough for them to go ahead and approve the loan. So adding a cosigner generally doesn't hurt if the cosigner has better credit than you. If the cosigner doesn't have better credit than you, hopefully you've talked about that in advance and figured out that might not be the right cosigner. And then a cosigner can also help when it comes to calculating a debt to income ratio, because now there's two borrowers and two incomes.
Right.
So it can be helpful, especially for a very young person who's just starting out. If they have a lot of student loan debt or, car payments or something like that, I know they don't want to have mom or dad co-sign, but maybe they do need that for just a little while until they build their own credit, and then they can refinance again.
You just phrase it as, you co-sign, I move out. You don't co-sign, I move in. They'll co-sign.
You might be onto something there. Oh, that's great.
All right, so assuming we feel like we're going to meet these standards and we're ready to apply, what information do I mean, I've applied for a mortgage in the past and it was like a folder this thick of information that I had to dig up to apply. How many things do I need?
I don't even know if I want to say this because I think I might scare people. In the case of refinancing student loans, it can feel a little bit like that. And the only reason it can feel that way is because you're trying to pay off multiple loans.
Right.
So the applying part's easy, right? You go online, you know your income, they pull your credit report.
Okay.
You know, they do all that kind of quick upfront, oh, you look good. On the back end, what they're going to want to do perhaps is verify your income, so pay stubs, or if you're self-employed, tax returns.
Okay.
And then once they say, yeah, you're good to go, now send us all the statements that show your payoff amount for your student loans.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're someone consolidating a lot of loans, you know, you might be sending over 10 statements, but most lenders these days have upload features. So usually if it's an electronic statement, you can upload it to their website, they attach it to your loan file. So it's a bit of a longer process.
Okay.
So that's one thing to keep in mind.
So I'm all about lists.
Yeah.
I like to have everything written out in advance. Is there a place where I can get like a checklist, or these are the types of things that a lender's probably going to ask for?
Yeah, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if you go to loanforme.com and you go under our resources page, you'll have a list. So there'll be frequently asked questions. There'll be the list to know what you've got for your loans, the calculator, and then yes, you can also see the types of things that you'll need for your application. And actually, one of our upcoming series 2 and 3, we're going to go into more detail when it's time to apply. So we'll kind of get into that nitty gritty a bit.
Okay.
So it looks like we have another question.
Can parents refinance student loan debt, or better yet, can a parent get off of a student loan through refinancing? I'm going to guess that was a parent asking that question. And if you're my parent, you're not getting off my loan.
So here, I will try to do my best to answer that question. So yes, if a parent has student loan debt they took on behalf of their son or daughter, I can almost guarantee there is a product out there that would let them refinance their student loan debt.
Okay.
All right. So just like you would hunt for a program or a product, the parent who wants to refi debt that they took out for a son or daughter, they can do that. So
but
that's part one.
If I have a student loan that I took out, can my parents refinance it and pay it for me?
Well, that's actually the reverse of the second part of this question. So the second part of this question is, can a parent get off a student loan through refinancing? And you're saying, can I shift my
Better yet, can my parents take on my student loan debt?
So here's what I'll say about getting on or getting off. Generally speaking, when someone is refinancing student loans, the people on the loan application have to be a party to the loans that they're trying to refinance. So you could do a refinance with all your loans and have mom as a cosigner, and she could bring her loans, and now the two of you together as a borrower and a co-borrower have one brand new loan. And then 5 years from now, when you're making $1 million and you're doing wonderful, you can refinance and drop mom. Okay. So to answer that question, yes, could a parent get off a student loan through refinancing? Possibly. But
as long as the person qualifies on their own.
Yeah, and it depends how that loan is structured. If that loan was just taken in your name as a parent, you're probably going to have to sit on a refinance loan for a little bit until the student, or the former student, the now young adulting, can actually refinance on their own to get you off. So it's a little bit of a hoop situation, a couple hurdles to jump.
Okay.
Because really, when you think about the lender, they're not in the business of just refinancing anybody's debt for any reason. I mean, they want to make sure that their program has integrity, and the integrity is we're refinancing these people's student loan debt, even if they're sitting there as borrower and co-borrower. Okay. So hopefully that made sense for the person that had the question.
Okay, one of the things I was wondering before, when you were talking about the lender will pull your credit report and everything for you once you apply. When they do that, does that impact your credit score? Like, is that a hard pull on your credit score? Should you be minimizing how many different loans you're applying for?
Yeah, so that's a really wonderful question, and you use some pretty, not advanced terminology, but just so people understand the difference between a hard pull and a soft pull, right? So a soft pull might be when a credit card company just says, oh, I'm going to do a soft pull and I'm going to send you that great offer in the mail for 0% for 18 months.
Right, those always look so credible.
They do, yeah, they do. A hard pull is exactly like what you're saying. A hard pull is you've applied for a loan and you've signed and said it's okay to pull my credit. So the rule of thumb is if you do a lot of inquiries, yes, it could actually impact your credit score. Generally speaking, what I tell people is if you already have a very high credit score and you're just doing 1 or 2, it's probably not going to impact your score dramatically because you've established a nice strong score. If you already have kind of a marginal score and it looks like you're getting ready to borrow again, it kind of makes the FICO calculation, I say FICO, but the credit score calculation, get nervous.
Okay.
So you want to be very cautious. It is the case with car loans and mortgages that if you pull that credit with multiple lenders in just a 2-week period, it gets treated as one inquiry. Okay. There's been discussion about having that happen in the student loan world, but I haven't seen it happen yet, so I don't want to say for sure that that's the case. So I'd be cautious.
Okay. We have another question that just came in about married couples, and can we combine our student loan debt together through a refinance, or would it have to be separate? If you're my husband, I'm not combining my student loan debt with yours, but if you're somebody who wants to combine your student loan debt with your spouse, can you do it?
Well, okay. So it's kind of like the parent question a little bit. So yeah, sure. If you find a lender that's willing to have you both on the loan, husband and wife, borrower and co-borrower, however you set it up, and you refinance all those loans together, that's fine. I'm going to feel like a very negative person when I say this, but if for some reason you don't stay married,
now you're stuck.
Now you just have a little bit of a sticky wicket to sort out when you start to, go your different ways because you have this combined debt. So it's possible. I would do it very cautiously and very prudently. I would even say, I know,
love your spouse.
There's even there's like a dating site years ago. I haven't been on this website, and I know I wasn't on it dating, by the way, but there was a dating site that actually asked about student loan debt. And I just thought that was really, really fascinating. So anyways, yeah, it is possible, and just like anything, you just move forward cautiously.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so it sounds like we were talking about before about applying. You just want to make sure you get all your ducks in a row first so that you're not applying over and over.
Right.
What are some things that you should do, or some resources that you can look at to sort of get your ducks in a row before you go to apply?
Yeah, so I would definitely do the annualcreditreport.com.
Okay.
Because I do think it's really important for people to check their credit annually anyway to make sure there's no mistakes. So that would be one thing. You want to make sure there's no surprises. I would say when you do your annual credit report, it doesn't come with a credit score, and a lot of people, that's like the number to live by these days, right? You live or die by the credit score, and so it's an important number. Take a look at what if you currently have a credit card, they actually might offer a free service where you can access your credit score.
Okay.
And it was funny. We were talking about this today, thinking about the Facebook Live event. I went, oh, I wonder if my credit card company does that. So I went in. I went, oh yeah, there it is, biggest day. Look, find your credit score. And so when you access your credit score, that's offered as kind of a service through your credit card. That doesn't count as a pull on your credit.
Okay.
So you don't need to be nervous about that. But that might be something that you've already got at your fingertips and you didn't realize. So get a good handle on what your credit score is. Have a good understanding that, 600s is, kind of fair.
Okay.
Low 7s, good. High 7s, excellent. And then kind of move from there as you research lenders. Because generally lenders will say, fair, good, and excellent. So you have a ballpark.
Okay. So that wraps up a lot of the stuff that we were planning to talk about tonight, but I know at our next Live Cafe event, we'll get more into how to look at different lenders and what they're offering and how to evaluate which ones might be a good fit. So feel free to ask questions about that here. If you respond after we're done with this event, we'll be sure to get back to you with a comment.
Yeah.
Or you can always call FAME, right?
Absolutely. So you can contact FAME. You can go to theloanforme.com. You can go to famemaine.com. I think I'm supposed to show you. This is what... I can't do this because it's backwards.
It's backwards for us.
It's backwards for you. It's forwards for you. So next Thursday, April 12th at 5 p.m., choosing the right lender and the right loan. So we will start to get more detailed. But if you have questions in the meantime, like Hannah said, you can always contact FAME. You can call our 800 number, 800-228-3734. And you can go to famemaine.com or theloanforme.com. But we hope that you found tonight informational, helpful, and at least kind of tamp down any worries if you're feeling overwhelmed. Because I think this is doable. You just have to get organized about it and put a little time and energy. It's not pleasant always, but it can be done. It can be done.
I want to be done.
Good. Thanks all. We'll
right.
see you next week.